I'm a son Hyperion, and this is Let's Argue. Let's Argue is a series where I take to Twitter and engage in your hot Halo takes, your crazy ideas, and your normal opinions. I agree or disagree and explain why. Sticker posters starting up. I know there's not much on it, plenty of space to fill, but from Small Acorns, Mighty Oaks, or something like that. There's a quote I'll put on the screen. I'll have a little more information in the future about how you can get a sticker on the sticker poster. I'm going to revamp the process a little bit because it was a little clusterfucked the first time, and I want to make it a little easier for me and for you. So, like in every episode of Let's Argue, I am joined by a special guest, a beer. And in today's episode, it is a Miller Lite, and my fellow beer drinkers watching might be thinking, oh, Sen, a Miller Lite, that's not really that impressive or interesting, and it's not. Miller Lite is my go-to if I'm going anywhere, especially if I'm in a new bar or a restaurant. I need to just start my night off. I always order a Miller Lite. So give me a Miller Lite. And that definitely started it when I was in college. I had a coworker I'd go to the bar with all the time after work. Our favorite bar, because they did 25-cent boneless wings and $5 domestic pitchers. That's not bad. And we'd always get a pitcher of Miller Lite. In fact, we'd went there so often and ordered the same thing so often. The staff would just bring us a pitcher of Miller Lite when we came in and sat down because they recognized who we were and knew what we were going to order. So if you want to participate in Let's Argue, it's really simple. All you have to do is follow me on Twitter. And when I post my monthly, bi-weekly, somewhere in there, Let's Argue threads, you drop your take. This video is pointed. I did ask for your hot Halo takes regarding the vehicles of Halo. Be sure you like and subscribe, and let's go ahead and kick this off. Elias says, way too many BTB maps after Reach have designated spaces for vehicles. It's like they don't want them to have an impact on matches. They're just there for funsies. Haha. Elia, you have an amazing eye. I agree. The trend of vehicles being put in the proverbial cage, so to speak, is real. And if you really analyze the evolution of Halo's BTB experiences, it's not that this never used to happen. I think most BTB maps, let's say 95%, have always had a distinction between, like, this is a vehicle space and this is a player space, even as far back as Halo CE. What has happened starting, what I would say, right around Halo Reach, that distinction between those spaces, that line, that wall between them, got far thicker. And I think by the time you hit Halos 4 and 5 especially, you start to see what I call micro mapping, where BTB maps are large open spaces and you have overly designed interior spaces between them, or player accessible only spaces between them, and vehicles can just kind of fuck off between those. And yes, what that has done is detached vehicles from the actual general combat. The end result, in my mind, is that you have players who will resolve themselves to never interacting with vehicles in a BTB experience because they no longer have to. They can stay in those overly designed micro maps and just engage with players. And then what makes it worse is that depending on what map you're on, leaving your micro map just puts you out in a no man's land. The new map Breaker that's used for Last Spartan Standing and also for BTB, God, is a perfect example of this. It's a bunch of little micro maps stitched together by no man lands and open alleys. You know, I'm not saying there isn't relevance to that design, because if you think about map design like fundamentally, I want to create equal validity in my play experience. What if my goal is to say, players can engage with bus players, or they can choose to fight with vehicles, or vehicles can just fight with vehicles. Well, then I'm going to break up my play spaces and have interactions between them, but I think an undermeasured impact of that is just what Laya is describing, where you don't necessarily have to have a vehicle experience in BTB, which is the vehicle game mode. I could tolerate it in Halo Reach and in Halo 4 and in Halo 5. It started to feel like we were really starting to miss the point of vehicle gameplay. And Infinite, I think, in some ways has lost it. Now, let me say this on a positive note. The Halo 5 Forge map Scavenger by Commander Coulson, BTB Forge maps in matchmaking, I think is my favorite example of doing this concept correctly, of having your vehicle dedicated spaces, but very naturally flowing those in and out of the micro maps, of the micro engagements. And to be fair, I mean, it's a hard thing to do. So you have to kind of ask, well, should we just go back to like Halo 3, for example, where it's just Valhalla and it's a big open fucking field, and the only thing giving you cover is maybe a rock or two and the change in elevation. Blood Gulch, and I have a whole video about, now that I'm talking about it, I have a whole video about the two of them. Blood Gulch is just like that. Like, here's a big open field, and the only thing keeping you from getting spawn sniped is that the elevations happen to change in the hills. And that's it. And that has its own shortcomings, but it is the opposite experience to what Laia is describing here. There's no right or wrong, but Laia is correct in observing that yes, the two gameplay experiences have become separated, and that is impacting what BTBs like to play. So, good eye. If you are a vigilant Ascend Hyperion viewer, you've probably noticed I am wearing the iconic Ascend Hyperion shirt that I happen to be wearing in all the Ascend Hyperion memes. Fracture Alt says, I'd rather have the Halo Wars vehicles, concept art and actual vehicles, rather than a lot of the vehicles we get, or one that's not in any of the games, the Heron. I don't really know what the Heron is, but Fracture, as much as I want to agree with you, I have to disagree, and I'll explain why. As someone who actually really enjoys Halo Wars quite a lot and loves the Halo Wars vehicles, they'd be hell in any actual balanced multiplayer experience as is, all right? And the reason I kind of picked Fracture's take here is because a lot of you mentioned this type of thing where you think we should have Halo Wars vehicles in Infinite, or Halo Wars vehicles would be superior to the typical cast, okay? And I get where that sentiment comes from, because Halo Wars vehicles conceptually are very cool because they are not bound by the same shackles that the FPS vehicles kind of have to conform to, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and put this out here. There's probably some of you, I'd imagine plenty of you, who just don't give a shit, right? You, in response to me saying you have to balance it out and it has to be even and considerate, you would say, oh, Ascend, well, I don't care, so what does it matter? You know, you're actually right. Your design motive does have an extremely important role in that. If the design motive is to create a balanced vehicle experience, not just between vehicles, but between vehicles and players as well, then yes, it's hard to reel in those Halo Wars vehicles. But if you just decide, oh, well, shit, that doesn't matter, and I can let the Wolverine curb stomp every Banshee, or I can let it, you know what would happen is that the Wolverine would start volleying players. I don't even want to get into it. I can give you a million ways how the Halo Wars vehicles would just be broken in general multiplayer. But if you say, I don't care about that, then hey, this works fine. All that to say though, there are ways to change the current FPS experience and make it a little more conformant to the Halo Wars vehicles, and then in that same effort, take the Halo Wars vehicles and make them work a little better in FPS sense. And I don't think all the Halo Wars vehicles would work like that. Like, for example, while it would be fucking sick, it'd be awesome to have the Halo Wars 1 Vulture just creep over fragmentation and just volley down. It just won't work. It's just not like that unless you have dramatic change in the BTB gameplay delivery. Now, conversely, a vehicle I think that probably could be incorporated pretty easily is the Cobra, you know? Cobra could be pretty akin to the tank as is in terms of its drive and its function, but instead to let's say to utilize the Cobra to actually fire it, I have to lock down. And sure, I could murk some vehicles, but I'm locked down and I'm vulnerable, right? That's an easy trade-off right there. So that's probably a vehicle that's more apt to being balanced in. I don't think it's as easy as some people kind of make it out to be like, oh, just Halo Wars, it'd just be better. There's a lot of considerations that go into that. And hey, if we eventually get a game mode that is tailored to those considerations, I'd love to see Halo Wars vehicles, 100%. I'm on your guys' side, but without some grander redesign of the game, I continue to disagree. So, sorry. VDub says, I don't think vehicles should spawn in 4v4. Most maps, they feel completely unbalanced. Now, it kind of goes on a little bit here to describe what I'm imagining is what happens in Infinite Fiesta. But for the sake of discussion, I'm going to focus on the instances where we do have regular vehicles as part of 4v4 experience. And to that measure, I disagree. I think the presence of vehicles in Halo's 4v4 or arena experiences is a long lost magic of the Halo experience. Because Halo Reach was the game that did away with that. Leading up to that, it was not uncommon to have a 4v4 map feature a mongoose or two, or a ghost, or hell, if you're playing Halo 2, even a banshee, okay? And VDub or whoever, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this doesn't come with design challenges, and in fact, we talk about the Halo 2 banshee on Pinnacle, yes, that is an easy example of getting it wrong. That's like, whoa, let's not do this. That's creating a problem. But having a ghost on a map in lieu of, let's say, a power weapon, I think is an interesting way to shake up the gameplay dynamic, because vehicles to me represent the fourth tier of power and of play in Halo, and finding ways to integrate that into smaller experiences, I think speaks to the versatility of the Halo gameplay experience. I don't think there's any other FPS shooter where you can just drop a fucking vehicle into the middle of a 4v4 match and no one really bats an eye. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, we get it. You know, we understand how it works. So I do appreciate that Infinite in some capacities has brought this back, and I understand that some people don't like that. In the case of Launch Site, I think they do it right. In the case of God, what's that fucking stupid map called? I'll put it on the screen. In the case of the other map, no, but that's not so much the fault of the vehicles. I think that's the fault of that map. That map is, I'd almost call it under-designed. It's like it's missing something. And, you know, we could almost have a whole video about that, because in reality, we give that map a lot of crap. To me, that's very much a retro Halo design. That's like totally a map I would expect to play in Halo CE or Halo 2, because the map design is so underthought and so plain. It's what I would expect in a classic Halo game, but after 2 decades of FPSs really developing and fleshing themselves out into competitive monsters, you would just roll your eyes at it today, which we're doing now, and I do it, and I understand what's going on. So it's less the fault of the vehicles and more the fault of the fact that that map just doesn't really pull weight in 2022. So to recap, yes, I do think some vehicles do have a place in 4v4 experiences, and I hope 343 and Forgers in the future continue to experiment with having vehicles be a part of that, because like I said, it's a lost part of the Halo experience that's definitely worth revisiting, iterating, and improving. The Vengeful Vadim says, the quality of vehicle gameplay began to take a nosedive with Halo Reach and has never recovered since. I disagree. This is a tough one for me, and what it really comes down to is how the take is phrased. Quality of vehicle gameplay has taken a nosedive since Reach. Without having Vengeful Vadim here, I can't really prod into what he means by the quality. And let me spin it like this, okay? I think the quality of the design of vehicles had reached an all-time peak in Halo 5. The actual design and function of the vehicles in Halo 5 are my #1 ranked. And that's kind of including the damage they do, how they do it, how they spawn, where they're located, how I access them, how I can use them, and how they drive, right? Just the physics of the vehicles. For me, across the board, Halo 5 takes that cake. And for me, that'd be quality. That's the quality of the vehicle experience. Now, what Vada might be getting at here is it doesn't matter how good that design is. It still has to play nice with other elements of the sandbox. And in that same game, Halo 5, vehicles are put on the fucking press by the power of weapons in that game. And that was part of Halo 5's design motive, is that it was trying to level out the power curves. And part of that meant raising a lot of weapons up to where they could be vehicle challengers. So in that lens, when I feel like my vehicle's getting beat to shit a lot by weapons it used to not get beat up by, then you could perceive it as like, wow, the quality sucks. And that was a big debate in the BTB days of Halo 5, whether or not the BR should have been a starting weapon. And I was so aggressively on the AR Magnum starts chain for BTB because I felt the BR was just too much. It was diminishing vehicles' value in BTB. So when I try to cast that in the lens of Halo Infinite, I think Halo Infinite has good vehicle designs, maybe not as good as Halo 5, and there are things I do like for example, shoot me if you want to, I love the Halo Infinite Mongoose. That thing is fun as fuck to drive. There are ones I have gripes with, like I think the Banshee in Infinite is an absolute downgrade. I don't like the Ghost. I have been playing this game for a long time now and still have not figured out the fucking chopper. There are weaker vehicles in Infinite, and to your points, I agree there. Those vehicle designs I don't like. But the ones that I think are designed well and still not doing well, there's a grander issue there, so. Yada yada, and there were a lot of complaints about vehicles in Infinite. And it's kind of a similar story for me. In the general sense, I like how the vehicles in Infinite work. They just don't work in Halo Infinite. You know what I mean? I disagree? Question mark? And that does it for this episode of Let's Argue. What do you think? Leave your thoughts on these takes below. Do you agree with me or disagree with me? Or the people in the comments? Like always, like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you have not, and if you want to participate next time, follow me on Twitter. Until next time, I'll catch y'all later.